Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware, and that's why we want to create something that's really going to reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every question there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
Many club and amateur level series will run more local and regional tracks as drivers work their way up the ladder. Today, the Ferrari Challenge competitors do just that at one of England's lesser-known venues. Snetterton's lap will be short and sweet, but hopefully the drivers' races won't be that way as we get ready to watch round 8 of the PRL GT Amateur Series, and you'll see it all live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Pekin. With me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. We'll hop over to the GT3 AMs here a bit later in Japan, but for now, let's head to our track guide to find out a little bit more about Snetterton. Welcome to Snetterton Circuit. Like many British tracks that were born shortly after World War II, this venue was made out of an old military airfield. It's a mere 30 minutes drive from Norwich and offers up 3 different layouts of varying lengths. This means the track is easily able to host international, regional, and club-level racing. Previously rather simple, the circuit's most recent update in 2011 introduced a twisty infield section. Still, it's mainly punctuated by 2 very long straights, the Senna Straight, where the pits are located, and the Bentley Straight, which acts as the backstretch. As you'd expect for a track born out of an airfield, there's little in the way of elevation change. However, the one spot in which you do find some undulation, it really stands out. The bomb hole dips cars down in the middle of a quick right-hand kink, causing them to have to keep a heads up lest they lose the car. The track is not without character though. Rich's is very swift for a first turn and includes 2 distinct apexes. There's also the combination of Brundle and Nelson, which forces drivers to turn hard while braking. Never an easy combination to manage. The long sweeping run through Coram down into Murray's can also be quite tricky. The car will want to drift out, forcing a shallow entry into the final left-hander. But failing to give yourself a good exit will leave you vulnerable to attack down the pit straight. Perhaps not as famous as some other British circuits, this place is a bit of a hidden gem in the UK motorsport scene. Fans who get to witness racing here certainly seem likely to return. Well, DJ, it's the 200 layout with these Ferraris here today, so I guess there's not going to be a whole lot to it, but that just makes the perfection that you need on these laps all the more important.
Very true, Joe. It's almost sort of an English version of Lime Rock in the way that there are so few corners around here, but there are a couple of good overtaking opportunities regardless. The best two are probably going to be going into Wilson and then that move down into Brundle and Nelson. Outside of that, you're going to find it a little bit difficult. Thankfully, the lack of downforce on these cars makes following through Baumhall and Coram a little bit easier. That kink into Murray's, though, that very tight left-hand, that's going to spread the field out a little bit going into the center straight, and drivers are going to have a hard time to be able to keep everything nice and together when they get on to that start-finish. We may see a couple of aggressive moves going down into Rich's, but I also think we're going to see a couple of people make some mistakes there. That's a very, very fast third to fourth gear right-hander that's a big sweeper, and it's very easy to pick up some understeer.
Yeah, and it's got two apexes to boot, so it is very technical. But before we get to that racing, we want to mention that our broadcast is brought to you by ASR. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com.
Tonight's broadcast is also brought to you by RaceLab. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it for free at racelab.app.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com.
Tonight's event is also brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
And finally, the PRL GT AM series is brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. If you take a look at the championship here, you will see that Jonathan Wager has put a major gap between himself and his rivals at this stage. In fact, the only other driver to have won this season is Eric Luke twice at this point, and even that has not put him within a win's worth of Jonathan Wager. From there on down, it gets pretty tight. Bo Phil only 4 points behind him with a tiny bit of a gap to Stetzel. And then Stetzel and Hellberg separated by about 3 themselves. What about in the teams championship, DJ?
Well, in that teams championship, you can see Eagle Vision Racing having a 14-point lead over Apex Button Box, and this close in the season, that is a very tight fight between the two of them, so watch for them to be really, really fighting it out here today. Improper Racing, well, they're off in an island unto themselves. They're 91 points back and about 30 points ahead of their closest rival of Parabola Racing Cobalt. Parabola Racing Midnight also back from them about 40 points or so they will have to try to close those gaps in the best they can, Joe.
Now, for today's race, if you haven't tuned into this series before, you have a 35-minute race in front of you, and it is a fixed setup series, which means the drivers all are running the same setup on the car, gearing, wings, tire pressures, everything. They have a drive-through penalty at 13 incidents, so if they go off track or spin too many times or hit other cars at the wall, they'll find themselves being sent down pit lane. And at 17 of those, they will actually be disqualified. And then there's the bonus points listed at the bottom that they can accrue along with their points for finishing well in the race itself. The bonus for pole is still yet to be set, as we're just getting into the qualifying session right now. And the laps go by quickly here with just over a minute to circulate in these GT3 cars. So should see all 4 laps in for most of the drivers pretty quickly.
Yeah, indeed, we should, Joe. So they should be flying in here, just waiting now for all of these drivers to get their times in.
Ooh, and I was just watching Eric Luke. He unfortunately had an off right in the very first corner. Let's see if Wager can do any better through Riches, and that did look a lot cleaner. So the 47 sends it into Wilson. One of the slowest turns, in fact, I think might be the slowest turn on this course as we hop on board with our championship leader down towards the very tricky braking into Brundle and Nelson.
Yeah, this is not the easiest braking zone as we see him here on the Bentley straight. It's that kink to the left that's relatively flat out and then hard onto the binders here for that right-hander of Nelson. And you can't scrub off too much speed because you need to carry as much as you can here through bomb hole and then the curving corner here at the end.
It also has its own little difficult braking zone at the end of it here into Murray's. Let's see if he gets this one good, and a little bit of a slide, but looks like it was at least decent. Let's see where it will put him in terms of qualifying. Mark Feil has the provisional pole. A 107.3, though, is going to put Jonathan Wager a clear half second ahead of anybody else except John Stetzel, who just goes up to second place about a quarter of a second back.
Yes, he does. So relatively tight margins there at the top. We watch there Stetzel working his way around those slow corners in that Eagle Vision racing machine. Remember, that's one of the ones that's really duking it out here for that points championship in the teams category. Down the Bentley straight now, lining everything up.
Still need a few drivers to put a time on the board. I think maybe about 8 of them, it appears. And Stetzel trying to see if he can go up that one position. Eric Luke with his off track still needs to set a time. I see Drew DeWeese needs one. Charles Sumner and Joe McCauley. Stetzel now around Coram and into Murray's. This one is nice and tidy. He's allowed to use that little bit of runoff to the right side. Beaufil manages to go quicker than Wager. And Wager is going to take it right back, but only by 0.03 of a second.
Oh, that is the closest time we've really seen all season there for Jonathan Wager getting challenged. Stetzel now going around Beaufil there with that great time. Yeah, Joe, as you said, that is very, very tight across the board. So let's see here. I'm seeing 2 more laps for most of these drivers, so still time to get some better laps in. Beaufil looking very good there coming through Nelson.
So Eric Luke up into the top 3 now that he at last has a time on the board. And by the way, we should probably mention that Wager has not been beat to the pole any race that he showed up for. He's got 6 out of the 7 so far, and the only other one that he didn't take, he wasn't there to try and have it, as Beaufil is going to try and deny him for the first time this season. The 786 is a little bit slower that time through, unfortunately. Mark Feil, a 107.7. That will not get him up to the pole once again as we check in on Stetzel. And as he crosses the line, another 107.7. That's about 0.2 off of his best.
Yeah, and it looked like there Jonathan Wager was a little bit slow coming out. Let's see, though, if Walker's able to improve. No, he is not. Yeah, indeed, Wager, I think, just having a little bit of a cool-down lap on those tires, maybe trying to get him back under a better temperature. He's on a flyer now.
Watching Jordan Walker down into Wilson, trying to just tuck it down to that apex and then get as good of a trajectory as he can for the Bentley straight. We check out DeWeese in the meantime. Didn't get his first lap, but this one was a 108.7. That's his best. That's good enough for 18th
All right, so he'll be hoping to start a little bit up. Baron Glover able to go a little bit better there. That'll bump his way up into 9th. David Cristelli pulling off into the pits. Here comes Bo Phil. Can he go any better? No, he can't. And that is his 4th lap, so he will do no better than 2nd place, Joe.
Sumner gets a 108.4 on the board. He goes up to 18th position. Stetzel crosses, and his first lap is going to be his best, so unfortunately couldn't find anything more. Looks like Wildridge also in the same situation, not able to improve. Blake Ziti finds his final lap, Neil Alexander rather finds his final lap deleted. And Wager improves on his 4th lap to a 107 flat. So he puts himself farther out of reach. Looks like Luke is in pit lane, so he can't respond. Cristelli is as well as Mark File, Ficadenti. I am not seeing any of the quicker drivers out on track able to try and deny another pole for the 47.
Yeah, it looks like Jonathan's going to keep that good streak going. Drew DeWeese coming to a stop there. Bo Phil, as we've said, this is just some practice out there for him for the improper racing driver, I think. Just putting in some fast laps as he can, trying to see what that car will do over a little bit of a longer run here.
Sumner abandons his final lap. McCauley carries on, but he's not able to go quicker. Looks like Stetzel's practicing his pit entry, and Paul Wildridge will too, since he has already taken his 4 laps. Blake Ziti has already finished his 4, which means that is everybody already done here. And our grid is set for round 8 of the PRL Ferrari Challenge. Let's go through our starting order on this grid. It'll be Jonathan Wager on the pole with Rafael Bofill in 2nd place. Eric Luke starts P3. John Stetzel will be to his outside. David Cristelli is on the inside of the next row with Baron Glover in 6. Mark File starts P7 and Mauro Ficadenti in P8. Then it's Owen McLaughlin 9th and Barry Cochran in 10th.
Leif Hellberg's going to be starting off in 11th. To his outside, it'll be Randy Gross with Peter Lee in 13th and Blake Ziti in 14th. Row 8 to the inside will be Jordan Walker, and Neil Alexander will be to his outside with Paul Wildridge and Charles Sumner behind them in row 9. Yannick Belleville will start off in 19th, and Joe McCauley will be rounding out your top 20.
Drew DeWeese, 21st today. Eric Evans in 23rd. And I'm just seeing him out there now. He hasn't set a time yet. I'm not sure if he'll have enough time to set one. And Matthew Aubrey rounds out the field here today. And as you can see by many of our shots, DJ, we have the lovely typical British weather to join us here.
Yeah, we do indeed. A little bit of a chilly day out there. 68 degrees air temperature, 69 degrees now track temperature. That means that especially going through Riches for that first time, that is going to be very tricky. Drivers are going to have to be careful to make sure their tires are up to temperature before they really push the car through that corner. The other thing to keep in mind here is that 9 miles an hour of wind coming out of the southeast. You'll get a little bit of a headwind here on certain corners. It could buffet the cars a little bit more. Relatively low humidity, though, so that is good for the drivers in terms of not having a lot of downforce and aero wash to have to worry about.
So I've been following Eric Evans because I did not expect anybody else to get out here, and he actually has gone off track on both of his laps, and he doesn't have enough time for any more. So he will start from the back of the grid, despite having opportunities to not do so. We're waiting for the session to wrap up here, and then the drivers will be sent to the grid. As we mentioned, Wager's been the one to beat. He's had 5 wins out of the 7 races this season. And Eric Luke, having taken 2 of them, has only beat him on track once so far this season. The other one, it was Wager not showing up that allowed him to take that victory. As we see the Senna straight there, which the cars will not be starting on. They're gridding up just outside of the bomb hole before Coram, and they'll have a very short pace lap before the Porsche pace car will release them. And then from there, 35 minutes around this track, and kind of curious to see how this is going to play out, because last time we came here in the PRL, DJ, we had quite a big incident into Riches in the Formula 3 cars.
Yeah, we really did, Joe, and I think the Ferraris unfortunately could be on for something very similar. This is going to be a little bit more of a speedrome type track, though, as compared to when we were here in the GT3s. They obviously ran the 300 layout, which is a little bit more tight and twisty. There's going to be a lot more top speed around here. I think that may mean that we could see some opportunity for some more fuel saving, maybe tucked up behind in a draft a little bit. But the two big danger areas on the track, that Brundle-Nelson complex and Riches, they still remain, so drivers are going to have to be on their game.
And the other talking point here is, though I do believe Wager has the possibility of clinching the championship, it would have to take extraordinary circumstances with a lot of the drivers close to him or closest to him in the championship failing to score points today or scoring very few of them. That said, if he continues to get a decent finish today, Jonathan Wager could set himself up for an easy clinch when we get to round 9 next week, which will be at Laguna Seca. And that will certainly be a place of celebration for him if he has another good run out here as they now take off behind the pace car, staying nice and close to it as well. Wager not giving any space to that Porsche. I wonder if he's a little bit afraid of Beau Phil maybe trying to get a bit of a jump on him here. As they come out of Murray's, tries to catch back up to the Porsche as it took it a little bit faster than he's used to, and he is off very quickly. Green flag is out, and Jonathan Wager is off. Beau Phil got caught napping a little bit there. And behind him, Eric Luke is trying to give chase, but can't get side by side into Riches. Behind them, looking to see if we are going to be clean through that double apex right-hander, and it looks like we have at least one big off-hander sliding back onto the track and across it. Oh! And that looks like that was Baron Glover who had that initial spin in the 93. But many others getting collected, unfortunately. We're going to take a look at that replay.
Yeah, so we jump back here, keeping an eye on that 93 there of Baron Glover. This looks like the precipitating incident of this accident. Diving down into Riches, Glover looking a little bit on the inside. Car starts to try to back out on him a little bit. There go those rear tires into that outside barrier. He's trying to hold the brakes the best that he can. And there is the view no driver wants to see.
Oh, yeah, whole field coming down on him. The first one I think that made contact there is Randy Gross. He had the biggest hit, and then behind him, multiple other cars really piled in. I see Charles Sumner, Joe McCauley, and it looks like Paul Wildridge involved as well. Glover, Gross, and DeWeese are all in pit lane, and Peter Lee, who got a piece of it, is joining them. Meanwhile, Beau Phil has his hands full there in second place. You can see behind Wager, who we're following. Luke was challenging, but now Luke is under threat as well. John Stetzel in the blue and orange 13 is getting mighty close, but it doesn't look like he's going to show his nose as they come up to Brundle.
Indeed, nobody's starting to pick that poke around there quite yet, but a definite train starting to build up around here as they go around. I think this is what we're going to see a lot, just a lot of waiting until that proper opportunity presents itself.
There's still plenty of racing to go, so hopefully chances will arise. Not looking good for Beau Phil to get chances because he's already 2 seconds behind as we complete lap 2 here. As we look back from onboard Luke at Stetzel, and they're now towing along Cristelli as well, coming up to Riches, but a swift right-hander. Not a lot of braking into this corner, and so Stetzel not close enough.
Yeah, not close enough to get it. Closing up again during braking. Almost contact there between the two, and that was Cristelli having to almost take some avoiding movement behind there to make sure as well.
Oh, and something's happened to Ficcadenzi in the background there. The 4 is off track. Looks like he maybe spun the tires, trying to come out of Wilson a little bit too much. So he is on his way, but he is down to 14th spot there as he gets overtaken. Well, almost overtaken. Walker's going to back out of it. So we'll stop it at P13 instead, although he's very shallow in a Nelson. Still somehow gets the car to turn in.
Yeah, able to do it there, able to hold him off. So good job for Ficadenti. We jump back up here to that battle. Stetzel now, Cristelli trying to look in behind. Bo Philp pulling along Luke, though.
Back into Rich's once again. And Stetzel has fallen off the back of the 709 now. Is Cristelli going to be able to try and get a mistake out of him and get the pass done? Not into Wilson. Trying to keep the car from spinning the tires here as they get the power down on the Bentley straight. And Cristelli way too far back at this stage.
Yeah, not able to get it there. He is just going to have to sort of hope and pray here that something's going to be able to come up to him. We jump up one car to John Stetzel. He's closing a little bit on Eric Luke as they go through Nelson. Now, these are the crucial corners. If he can keep up close here through Coram and Murray's, he may be able to have a shot going down the center straight. But looks like Luke's able to pull away a little bit.
Bad news for fans of Baron Glover. He tried to come back out, and the car was not fixed well enough. He had to take it back into pit lane. Drew DeWeese is also back out, but he just sent himself way off into the grass coming out of Wilson, and he took a tow. So it looks like he is going to do likewise as we continue to follow on board, looking at Stetzel from the gearbox of Eric Luke. They're going to now plunge into Wilson themselves, and as close as he's getting, just seems like Stetzel can't get close enough that he can really attack yet.
Yeah, not exactly close enough. I do wonder as these fuel loads start to burn off a little bit, the cars get a little bit lighter, we may be able to see some guys being a little bit more aggressive on the brakes. But right now, it is a little bit of a follow the leader race as they plunge their way through Brundle and Nelson. Satina-ing up around that corner. Ooh, that's a wide run there from Stetzel.
That costs him a couple car lengths, but Cristelli isn't able to try and capitalize on it himself. We've had a problem for Neil Alexander out of Brundle and Nelson here. Looks like he is going to get the car rolling. Safe rejoin for him as he waits patiently for some clear track. Let's take a look and see what caused this one.
It looked a little bit, Joe, just like a self-spin. I think he may have spun those rear tires a little bit, maybe carried a little bit too much speed through the corner. Ooh, oh, no, he caught the grass. That's what it was. Caught that grass on the outside, and that sent that 27 spinning the wrong way.
So he's rolling again, but it's down in 16th now. Looks like Peter Lee and Charles Sumner have been able to repair their cars and are also going, but they're down in 19th and 20th respectively. We continue to check in on John Stetzel because this has been the closest fight for much of the race, but it's wavered back and forth, DJ. At times, Stetzel is on the attack with Luke, and at times he's on the defense.
It is, but I'm going to be a little bit worried about John Stetzel here in that 13 machine. I've seen him kicking up a lot of dirt on the outside of this track. He's got to be careful not to run afoul of that incident limit. We didn't really expect that to be a problem here at Snetterton, but with just as much grass as he's picking up, just like through there, that could be an off track. Ooh, that's another off there. That is the number 4 of Ficadenti yet again.
In a similar spot to what we saw before. And you know what? It was pretty much a carbon copy, except he didn't touch the grass, but he did whip the car around in the same spot. Oh, and did Stetzel just get by Luke?
Yes,
wow.
He did. Just a good run out of Murray's and right down to the inside of Rich's. That's going to move that 13 up into the podium position. Let's check out the replay.
Ooh, went wide, and Luke knew it. But he doesn't cover off the inside. He lets him have it. And, yeah, as we mentioned, it's very fast in that corner, so it takes a brave person to make the pass, and the 13 is certainly feeling brave today.
Yes, he is. And Luke was able to close up a little bit down the Bentley straight, but as they went through Brundle and Nelson, it looked like Stetzel was able to start to pull ahead. And indeed, as they come out of Coram right now, he's been able to grow that gap to about 0.5 of a second. They'll obviously bunch up a little bit here through Murray's, but back onto the loud pedal is Stetzel, and he's got that gap still hovering around 0.6.
Ooh, Jordan Walker also taking a trip through the grass here. And once again, it is Nelson, but this time he went a little bit far on the outside. Didn't hit anything, though. Not worth a replay on this one. He falls down to 18th from that. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We are just about 10 minutes into this, and already I can see that the 47 is about halfway around the track to lapping people. So in the next 10 minutes, well before we get to the halfway point, we should see drivers starting to deal with lap traffic here. And that's not even dependent on some of them having some more issues at the back. Oh, Mark File losing a position to Cristelli. What happened here? Excuse me. Looks like there was a bit of a connection issue. Apologies. So,
yeah, that confused me there a little bit, Joe, but we continue to watch here. ZD being chased down by Hellberg. Wildridge looking threatening behind. He's able to carry some good speed through that corner as they now dive down into the left-hander, trying to see what he can do here on the Senna straight. We're going to go on board with Wildridge here. Not quite close enough to make a move, I think, going down into Riches, but he's starting to threaten for sure.
See if maybe somebody could get a launch down to Wilson. It's a spot that offers overtakes if you can stay tight to the rear bumper of their rival ahead, but he's not going to do it this time. Now trying to switch back and get himself a good launch down the Bentley straight, but again, he's just too far behind that black and blue number 52. There we see the gap on your screen now.
You can see that timing. Wildridge definitely putting in some faster times by... Oh, that's a car off ahead of them. I believe that's Cochran.
And despite being slow, ZD was not able to get by. Another little try there from Wildridge on Hellberg, but even that is not enough for him to get the pass done. Oh, he's very late on the brakes, too late. And unsighted, he goes wide, loses a great opportunity here down the Senna straight.
Yes, he does, but I think with Cochran right ahead of him, that's going to create a whole different dynamic for this four-car fight that was once a three-car fight. ZD looking very, very challenging, diving their way through Riches right now. ZD's got some good runs. Oh, that was off the back there. That was Wildridge. Oh, that was a little look there from Hellberg as well.
This all kicked off by Barry Cochran, just like many drivers going off, and Nelson once again. That has been Calamity Corner today. And look at him weave down the Bentley straight, trying to break this slipstream a little bit, but nothing doing at this stage. Looks like somewhere around the track, Joe McCauley has had an off. Oh, it's another case of spinning the tires up, trying to exit out of Wilson, it appears. So we'll stick here, down through the bomb hole. One of the few places where they have elevation change around this track. It, like many British race courses, was built on an air base, so just incredibly flat over the course of the lap.
Yeah, not a whole lot of that elevation change, and coming through bomb hole, it's almost unnoticeable the way it goes. We look out the back here of Barry Cochran's machine, that dark blue of Blake ZD just continuing to threaten. You can see the gap coming down a little bit courtesy of the draft. That was Cochran kicking up a little bit of dirt on the entry into Riches. Whoa! ZD holding on to it like a champ there.
Just a little far out into the grass, and thankfully did not spin it back across. We've already seen the big wreck that caused at the start of this race, and ZD was not strong off the corner. Hellberg sizing him up. Can he make the pass here into Brundle? The answer looks to be a no, unless one of them now has another mess up into Nelson, and they're all four going to be clean this time.
Yes, they are. A little bit of a checkup there for Hellberg as they went through bomb hole there, now through Coram, spreading out a little bit. Now it's the all-crucial Murrays. Is ZD able to back that corner up enough to get a good run? It doesn't look like it for right now. They'll stay in order, I suspect, as they make their way down that front straightaway.
Yeah, coming up into Riches, just too spread apart amongst them. We've seen a lot of little battles like this that have been kind of stuck in this stage, as a lot of people are kicking up the dirt coming off of Riches. That first corner certainly is a tricky one today. And then off of Wilson, Wildridge just nowhere to be found. as Hellberg continues to stay tight to the rear bumper of Blake Ziti. 21 minutes left now. 17 minutes will be roughly the halfway mark.
Exactly, and I anticipate drivers having to come in to make that mandatory pit stop probably between about 15 to 12 minutes to go. I think that's roughly the window we'll be looking at. We may see some alternate strategy coming out of these drivers because of the difficulty to pass around here. Whoa! Ziti getting a little aggressive there. Almost loses the car.
That was a big bobble. Is this enough finally for Leif Hellberg to do something? It's not looking like it, honestly. I feel like perhaps the fact that this is fixed setup has made it all the more harder to try and overtake because nobody really has any aero advantage over the other.
No, they really don't. It is all just about driver's skill and driver ability, frankly. Speaking of that, look at Hellberg here. A great run there out of Wilson. He's going to be tucked right up behind on the Bentley straight. This could be the opportunity if he feels gutsy into Brundle and Nelson.
Ziti off to the right-hand side. This will leave the inside open into Brundle, but it covers him off here into Nelson, but he goes deep, somehow still makes the corner, and no change for position. Yet another frustrating moment for the 52. We can't seem to get past that blue number 50. Now down to 20 minutes left to go. This has been one of our closest fights on the track for much of the race now. We've left the battle between Bofill and Stetzel because that's kind of evened out into half a second. And Wager, well, he's gone. He's 5.2 ahead of anybody else.
Yeah, Wager just doing Jonathan Wager things and very much checking out. You can see the gap there in behind with Bofill and John Stetzel. Remember, he was able to get past Eric Luke early in this race. He's now starting to threaten Rafael Bofill for that second position. And indeed, as they dive through Nelson, he is right up behind that second place machine.
Can also report that Neil Alexander has taken a scheduled stop, so he is out and ready to go. Fuel put into the car. 10.8 is our first marker for the day in the pit lane. Phil with about 0.7 of a second over Stetzel as they accelerate down the Senna straight. Oh, and Wildridge has lost the train ahead of him that he has been chasing for so long, and unfortunately, this one did wind up with some contact in the wall. Just very light, though, here into Nelson. Let's watch the replay.
Yeah, so this, he just carries a little bit too much speed in. Yep, doesn't touch anything there, Joe. I think that may be an issue of a little bit too much steering lock as he was applying braking going down into Nelson, and maybe a little bit too much rear brake bias, those rear brake calipers locking up on him and send him spinning around. And he's now going to come on into the pit lane.
Indeed. So, taking service. I don't know that was necessarily scheduled, but I do believe this is just convenient for him at this point. Oh, and Owen McLaughlin is our latest there at Nelson. Also making contact, this time a little bit harder, though. Oof, big damage on the left-hand side of the car.
All right, but we're going to jump back to that battle for third. Stetzel all over the back of Rafael Bofill as they go down into riches. He is really pushing that car. You've got to be a little bit careful. Eric Luke is only about 1.5 seconds behind them, so if they squabble out this too much, they could find themselves in a world of hurt and another driver entering the fray.
I don't know how Stetzel got that close to him so suddenly. Was there a mistake from Rafael that put him under the gun? We'll have to check the lap times here in a bit to see if this one is not as strong as the others. Both of them managing to navigate through Brundle and Nelson successfully. Not every driver can say that. In fact, it's becoming fewer and fewer drivers that can say they can get through there safely. As there we see the lap comparison, 0.5 seconds quicker on lap 15. So it very well could have been on that one. Little bobble there from Stetzel coming off the turn, and Bofill is in. So we're not going to know if this one was slow or not. It's a bit of a moot point. Now this opens up the track for the 13 to try and see if he can put a hot lap in and leapfrog him.
Yeah, indeed. This is what they would call in the Formula One world hammer time for John Stetzel. He has just got to go for absolute broke here. We check back on Hellberg and Ziti. This battle continuing to play out, although Hellberg has been able to get by Ziti. Joe, or am I crazy on that?
Yeah, I believe Hellberg was behind Ziti before. Yeah, so he has managed to make the pass at some point. I'm trying to see how far ago this was. And yeah, this was a few laps ago. He got it down the Bentley straight into Brundle. So just had a good run, slipstreamed by. And now that he has passed him, he's put about 0.8 of a second over the 50 and continues to stretch that bit by bit.
And that's a little bit of a trend that we've seen out here today, Joe. Drivers who are able to get by, make that aggressive move, really releasing themselves out into clean air and starting to pull away. Looking at John Stetzel in particular, who was able to do that early on and then catch up with Rafael Bofill. And so Hellberg looked like he was held up a little bit behind Ziti and not having the best run. Oh, bad news for fans of John Stetzel. He had a very, very wide run through Wilson, just missed the apex of the corner. And look how close Eric Luke is coming up behind him now.
That's not good. Good news for Stetzel because Bofill has clear air in front of him now that he's finished pitting. And here's the incident for Stetzel. So up into Wilson. Whoa, and thankfully that's a very wide corner. There's a lot of pavement to the outside. And that kind of saved him from slipping any farther. But he's now got a slow lap on his hands. I'd almost say he has to try and stay out, and he does. Because he's got to try and really put the foot down to see if he can pull one over on Rafael Bofill, who is still circulating on his own in ninth. He is our highest driver to have pitted currently. But we're getting close to the pit window ending. We should see at least a couple drivers in soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple. Barry Cochran, the latest to bite the bullet on that. Here is Bofill as he comes around ninth place. He's got himself a perfect area to run here. Got a big gap up ahead to the tune of about 4 seconds or so to Blake Ziti, so he can just run some hot laps, focus in on running as hard as he can.
Not seeing any other takers on this lap down into pit lane. So it seems like many more are still interested in trying to run it as long as they can. In fact, our leader coming by now, and Wager will keep going with 13 minutes left on the clock. Looks like Stetzel has really got this under control now as he goes by his teammate there. That was Paul Wildridge staying out of the way of both of them. So yeah, Stetzel's got his legs underneath him, and he's pulling away from Luke. And this last lap for John was a 1:07.6. That was about a 10th shy of his quickest lap of the race. Yeah, I'd say he's on it.
Yeah, he is definitely pushing here as much as he can. He knows he needs to try to put in the best laps that he can to get ahead of Bofill. Looking at the last lap times, he was 0.3 of a second faster than the number 8. So he's clearly got some speed, and that clear air is helping out the 13.
So far, we've got 5 drivers that have completed their stops for fuel and have come back out onto the track. So we're waiting on pretty much the majority to do their strategy, including the top 7. And you've got Aubrey, Belleville, and Walker as well who need to come in. And it looks like Jonathan Wager will pit now. So our leader now affects his strategy. John Stetzel does as well. But interestingly, Eric Luke is able to stay out another lap.
All right, so that could be a wrench into the works here. We'll have to see how it plays. Watching Stetzel as he comes to rest in pit lane. You can see there Bofill's pit stop was about 12 seconds long. I anticipate Stetzel's being a little bit less. He's got a little bit less to put into the car here. Let's see what he does. 11, indeed. He is already out and on his way.
All right, I see Blake Ziti in. Hellberg is also in. This seems to be pretty close to the end of the pit window, and that is side by side with Beaufil, just managing to sneak by Stetzel, who is nearly a second quicker in the pit lane. He is going to stick his nose in down into Wilson, but can't get the side by side, or can he? No, he gets fed out, and neither of them can get the traction down, both squirming as they try to accelerate.
Yeah, both not able to get the run that they wanted to there, but here comes Stetzel trying to put a little bit more pressure on Beaufil as they come down the Bentley Straight and into Nelson and Brundle. There they go. It doesn't look like Beaufil is going to try to go for a move there. Has to check himself up in the middle of Brundle. Ooh, runs a little bit wide. That car dancing across some of the AstroTurf.
And look at the difficulty he has in spotting his markers, because that rear bumper is just filling his windscreen as close as he's been getting. Backs it up a little bit now, gives himself some viewing room, but now it's going to be harder to overtake, and still has a wiggle coming out of the final corner.
Yeah, that car there from Stetzel just not looking completely under him at this point. I wonder if the tires were a little cool coming through pit lane, and that could have slowed him down a little bit. Eric Luke just popped out in front of these two, Joe.
Well, he went that lap longer, and the reason he was able to undercut is his pit stop was that much shorter. Oh, but he has trouble trying to accelerate behind Blake Ziti, who is a lap down, and that made him susceptible. Here comes Beaufil. Beaufil going to look to the inside, coming into Brundle. Are we going to go three wide potentially? Is Ziti going to try and lift? He is, and they go three wide into the corner. But Luke comes out in front, and a little bit of acceleration at the wrong time for Beaufil. Puts him under threat. Down the inside goes Stetzel, through the bomb hole, and out the other side. Stetzel carries the momentum. Another right-hander now into Corum, and he's back through.
Hoi, oi, 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 oi. Talk about some great battling there from all three drivers. That was Stetzel, though, getting a little bit wide on the exit of Murray's. Is that going to present a little bit of an opportunity here to Beaufil if he can get it down right through Rich's? There they go, flying across the start-finish line here. The three of them still in a lockstep battle, but we're going to go back and check out this replay, Joe.
All kicked off by the little mistake there from Eric Luke. He knew he was under threat, and great heads up by Blake Ziti as we just had a wreck. Eric Luke and Rafael Beaufil are off the course, and Wilson, did they come together?
Yes, they did. Beaufil went complete send on that. Unfortunately, was able to get a dive up the middle of Stetzel, and then I think his brakes just locked up, and he caught Eric Luke.
Both of them made contact. We're going to take a look here at it. Yeah, and just bang and bang. And Beaufil has been quick to get on the radio to apologize. He knows that he was the one at fault here. Yeah, outbraked himself big time. He's going to get one, and then he'll get a punt from behind for good measure. There it is. So Beaufil down in 6, Luke falls down to 4th, and Stetzel inherits 2nd, but what kind of speed is he running at now? Because the 13 has got to have a bit of a crunched nose. Let's see if we can get a camera on him.
He looks relatively... Well,
We're looking
that's
for the 13.
Beaufil.
Yeah.
Stetzel looks relatively okay, Joe. There's a little bit of damage on the left side of the car. I can see a slight indentation on the splitter, and that hood looks a little bit out of place.
I'm impressed. I would have thought that he would have just a huge chunk there. But, yeah, last lap, 109.3 for him, which seems to be actually still a little bit slower. And I think that was the lap where he had the contact. So this one will be more telling, because Cristelli is behind him by about 1.6 seconds. So if he is slow, then Stetzel's going to have a hard time in these last 7 minutes holding on. And it is a 108 flat. That is mildly slower than most of his laps, who were kind of ranging between the mid 107s and the 108s. So it's not dire, but he could be susceptible here as We watch Cristelli on your screen in the gray and teal number 009, trying to chase him down. Last lap for Cristelli was a 1:08.3, which was still slower than Stetzel. Oh, no. Beaufil leaving smoke there. He has gone off in riches.
Oh, and he had another big problem there in riches. Yeah, let's watch this. Joe just loses control of the car. He has now officially towed. Dives down into the corner here. Does he catch a little bit of the grass, maybe? I think it was the... There. Oh, there it is. There it is. Just right there and right into that barrier. A big kathunk.
If there's one thing we've learned from Riches today, it's mo speed, mo problems. And unfortunately, it wound up with damage for Raphael Beaufil after he was looking at a podium. So the race continues on. Wager at a now whopping 10.8 seconds ahead of Stetzel. Stetzel only about 1.5, but holding station over Cristelli. He was about 0.2 faster once again, so all of my predictions about drama are not seeming to come true between P2 and P3.
Not necessarily, but still a little bit of a battle here shaping up with Barry Cochran and Leif Hellberg as they work their way around. Only about 0.3 of a second between the two. Hellberg, I like that line from him there through Wilson. You saw that later apex from the helicopter shot there, trying to carry some momentum and maximize speed down the straight.
Cochran's been in the thick of the racing here today. They're going to go by the likes of Drew DeWeese. He's just going to stay out of the way, the lapped car. We watch from the perspective of Hellberg. He's a little bit tighter down to the apex, down through Nelson. Now through the last double right-hander here, Blomholt and Coram. Trying to set themselves up into Murray's corner. Interestingly, with all the accidents we've seen, we've only lost Randy Gross and Owen McLaughlin, and now Raphael Beaufil looks to be the latest to have had to have called it a day. And Baron Glover and Ficadenti also early out of this one. Charles Sumner back in pit lane. Not sure if that's scheduled. Is way off into the dirt once again. Leif Hellberg is tempting fate.
Yes, he is. He is just pushing that 52 as hard as he can. Really, really running wide there at Riches and seeing what he can do. But that cost him time now going down the Bentley straight. As we take down under 4 minutes to go here, Joe, I think Hellberg knows time is running out. And if he wants to move up, he has got to do it sooner rather than later.
Both of them have gone up 4 positions each. So they've made about equal gains, but they'd like more. Cochran from 10th to 6th, Hellberg from 11th to 7th. That is eclipsed by Matthew Aubry, who has gone from 22nd to 9th.
And there.
Ooh, this is a good exit. This is a very good exit. Hellberg is now on top of him, and Cochran is trying to cover him off, but only half-heartedly. Hellberg sees an opening. He's going to try and take it. Is he going to go too wide into Riches? No, he breaks early and chopping down to the apex. Cochran really slammed the door.
Yeah, Barry does not want to give that spot up whatsoever, and I think Hellberg may be getting a little bit frustrated trying to make any move he can. He got a better run there out of Wilson than I've seen the last couple of times, but he's still about 0.3 of a second back. That's not going to be close enough, I think. Let's see if they come in here onto the binders. Yeah, he's not going to be close enough to really make this move here into Nelson. He's going to keep up the pressure, though, Joe.
Indeed, and he's got to keep it up for these next couple laps because I believe there are going to be 2 to go next time by for Jonathan Wager. So I guess 3 laps as these 2 cross soon. Ooh, there's some blinking, though, from Barry Cochran, possibly causing consternation in the cockpit of the 52 after that one. Way too far back for anything into Riches amongst the pair of them. So they now start on to lap 29 here, and Hellberg continues to make sure he stays as big as he can in the mirrors of the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, just seeing if he...
Whoa!
Force, yeah, a little bit of contact there between the two, and Hellberg's going to back out of it.
That was ambitious stuff there from Hellberg. In fact, I have to give credit to the 52 in this situation. This will be a great angle on this. He sees it happening rather than just continuing to try to send it in. He tries to get the car woed up as much as possible. And actually, Racing Karma is going to pay him back, as I can report as we're watching this. Cochran just had an off in Nelson, and Hellberg took the position with ease.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact there, Joe. Hellberg, I think, very smart, though, to get on the binders and try to back out of that as much as humanly possible to try to avoid contact. But as you said, he's on by now.
That makes it now 5 positions up for the 52. And behind Cochran, that is not 4 position that you see on screen. So Cochran's pretty safe. Neil Alexander's a full 12 seconds back from him. Where is Wager? Wager's actually coming to the white flag here in just a moment, still holding about a 12-second lead, and I need to check what his record is. I want to say it's 30 seconds, the gap between himself and P2 this season.
Yeah, and on a track like this, it is a little bit smaller as we watch Paul Wildridge getting wide and squirrely there coming around the outside. That is Wildridge back in 13th position, trying to close down on Eric Evans right in front of him.
It's not the first time that Paul has had that happen. He went wide at Murray's a few laps ago, nearly spun across into the wall, but kept it going. And it's just been a bit of a bad day for him ever since he lost touch with that front group for a while. I can confirm that Wager at Lime Rock won by 30.9 seconds over Wildridge. That is his biggest margin so far this season. So he's not even close to matching that this time around. But he's going to notch up another victory pretty soon, because as he comes through Coram into the braking at Murray's, just managing to have overtaken Paul Wildridge. Clear road in front of him under gloomy skies today. The 47 takes the win here at Snetterton.
He does indeed. Yet another commanding drive for Jonathan Wager, just stamping his authority to all of this. John Stetzel, after some bunting and banging along the line, he's going to come home P2, and David Cristelli looks like he will round out your podium.
Only real battle we've got left on the lead lap is Aubrey and Walker between 9th and 10th. Still valuable positions here. And looking like these are 2 teammates, actually, that are battling out there right now. Yeah, that's for the Parabola Cobalt team. Coming down through Coram, just a little too far behind as it now pulls up to about a second. And Aubrey's actually catching Neil Alexander a little bit, but it looks like he's got enough steam to be able to find the finish line. With that, that's going to take us to our results, and let's take a look at how things wound up here today. It was Jonathan Wager, as we mentioned a bit ago, taking the victory by about 12 seconds over Jonathan Stetzel in a second. David Cristelli finishes P3, with Eric Luke slipping off the podium after starting within those top 3 and settling for 4th. Mark Feil was P5, and Leif Hellberg was maybe a bit impatient at one point, but then patient later, and that paid off as he climbs 5 spots up to 6th. Barry Cochran was 7th, and Neil Alexander 8 spots up from 16th to 8th. Matthew Aubrey has taken the hard charger award in the meantime, 22nd to 9th, and then 10th went to Jordan Walker.
Coming home in 11th, it was Yannick Belleville, followed by Eric Evans. In 12th, it was the last car on the lead lap. Blake Ziti was in 13th, followed by Joe McCauley and Paul Wildridge. From there, these are drivers that had a few incidents along the way. Peter Lee in 16th, Charles Sumner in 17th, both of them 5 laps down. Bo Phil was a DNF here today, 6 laps down, as was Doris and Owen McLaughlin.
And then it's just DNFs after that, as those bottom 5 look like they did not see the checkered flag. We're waiting to see if we get Wager in here in a moment. The Canadian due to come talk to us after this race, and I think we're having a little photo session there for a brief moment for our drivers on the Bentley Straight, it appeared. But as we give it a second to see if we can get John in to talk to us. DJ, that actually went a little better than I anticipated, but it was not without incident, just a lot of single-car incidents there, and mainly in Nelson.
Yeah, Joe, and truthfully, that's not entirely surprising. We talked a little bit during the broadcast about just how tricky of a braking zone that is. You've got to flick your car over to the left and then immediately straighten it out and get on the binders. Very, very easy at that point to lock up those rear brakes, carry too much speed around. It's very, very tough.
It is extremely difficult, and I think the drivers showed it today. It's also so tough that it seems like nobody's able to come and talk to us, so we're unfortunately going to have to leave without any interviews. But remember, we have more racing coming your way. As you can see, we're off to Japan for Suzuka in the PRL GT3 Amateur Series in just a moment.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client, and like we did today, we install a D-box system, we install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA. Treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware. And that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
From the open fields of England, we have flown all the way over to the shores of Japan. We got to watch this place last night, and it put on a fantastic show. But in case you missed that, we have our track guide to introduce you to this historic venue. Welcome to Suzuka Circuit, perhaps most famous for its hosting of the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix for much of the event's history. This track sees all sorts of racing besides that. In fact, this place began as a test track for Honda, but later proved to be a driver and fan favorite for competitive motorsports as well. The full layout of the Grand Prix course steals the show, but there's actually 5 different versions that can be run on iRacing. With their lap lengths ranging from just over 2 kilometers to nearly 6 kilometers, plenty of different types of cars can suit the track. GT racing and lower-level open-wheelers are quite popular, but motorcycles are also a staple here. Some of the corners have become world-renowned over the years. The S's are often cited as one of the great tests of a driver's technical prowess. Then, of course, there's Degner's 1 and 2, which provide very little runoff considering their fast and narrow entry. Later on, the long backstretch leads up to the notorious 130R, which is blindingly fast. The Casio Triangle offers one last chance at an overtake if you're brave, but has been the scene of many drivers clattering into one another over the years. F1 fans will be quick to cite the infamous coming together here between Senna and Prost. However, real-life visitors will find it's more than the racing that provides some viewing pleasures. The unique ways in which the Japanese fans celebrate their favorite cars and drivers certainly capture your attention. But it's no wonder they're such fanatics, because who wouldn't be with one of the world's greatest tracks right in your backyard? Well, DJ, much like we saw with yesterday, Daytona and Suzuka, a contrast, and now Snetterton, quite the contrast to this place.
Yeah, indeed, Joe. And we saw these same GT3s out here yesterday, and really what we learned wasn't too surprising. Best overtaking opportunities. We saw a lot of good dives going down into that the Casio triangle, and a couple of moves continuing on up into the first part of the S's. Some very good side-by-side racing through there. No real moves going through the hairpin. The second sector remaining pretty calm and pretty follow the leader. But the one thing that really surprised me is we saw more than a few drivers making some great attacks going into Spoon. And so I think that's something to keep an eye out for as we get ready for this amateur series here today.
Now, this amateur series also has its own championship, and Vincent Trepanier has been leading the way in this one as well. But his 5 wins have come at the cost of Nathan Nicholson taking 2 of them, but he's not in these top 5 that you see. So everybody else struggling to be as consistent as that NTR Motorsports driver, Norris, Campbell, Belval, and Langlois, rounding out the top 5 with 3rd through 5th. Very, very tightly packed together. What about in the team's championship?
In the team's championship, ASR AMA leads only by 16 points over NTR Motorsports Yellow, so a very tight battle there at the top. TML Motorsports, a bit off in their own world, about 30 points back, or excuse me, about 50 points back of that second place, with YS Motorsports maybe having enough striking distance to close down on them. But a 40-point gap between L1 Esports Red and YS Motorsports, that's looking a little unattainable unless we have some crazy actions going into these final rounds, Joe.
Indeed. And as we take a look at the race details, we are in round 8 out of 10, so it's getting down to the end of it. If anybody wants a chance to try and beat Trepanier to the championship, they really need to get a good chunk out of him in today's race. It is an open setup series as opposed to the fixed setup that we saw before. So drivers really need to dig in to try and find speed and comfort out of these machines with the ability to do so, because that could pay dividends. Drive-through penalty and disqualification penalties are the same as we saw before, as are the bonus points, including that pole position, which we will get to in a moment. We're just finishing up practice here at the track, and while it is sunnier here in Japan, it's also just as cool out on the track surface. If we take a look at the weather, with only 69 Fahrenheit, 21 Celsius currently on the surface.
Yeah, and so what that means is that we're still going to have a little bit of chilliness in that first corner, but the tires should get up to temperature relatively well. 71% humidity, that's going to help the drivers. These GT3s don't have a whole lot of aerodynamics on them, but just the little bit that is perfect, and it will help them get a little bit harder into the track. They're going to have to watch out, though. 8 miles an hour of wind. If that gusts a little bit higher, as we're seeing it bump up to 9 right now, especially at the high points of the track around Spoon and that area, that could create a little bit of a gust for him.
It was Paul Espina that we were watching there as he was getting his last little bit of practice in. Camera obviously struggling a bit, maybe with the way that this track is sucking up some of the resources for his computer. But as warm-up finishes, here's the interesting thing. Nicholson's back, and he's 0.7 of a second quicker than Vincent Trepanier in the practice session. Now, that's practice. We got to talk about qualifying, because that is what's kicking off now. Do you feel like there's going to be a difference in that? Or you think that warm-up session is enough to go on that Trepanier is under the gun here, DJ?
Well, I'm not sure, Joe. One of the things that we can never really know when we're just watching those practice times is what setups they're running out there. Trepanier could have been focused on long run pace, just working that race pace over and over. And it may have been an instance where Nicholson went out and put in a super hot lap or two and ran that qualifying setup. That could make a big difference between the two. We will just have to see. There's also the potential that Nicholson could have picked up a little bit of a draft. There are some pretty long straightaways around here at Suzuka, and so that may have been able to get him up there forward. But now, during qualifying, no other cars on the track. It's time to put your money on the table.
Exactly. And I know sometimes we can be prone to trying to over-dramatize certain things just to make sure that there is some tension for what could potentially happen in some races, even when they look a little bit certain. But based on that qualifying time, and also the fact that last race, Trepanier had only his second time finishing off the podium, fourth place for him back in Miami. Almost kind of looks like Vincent is a little bit on the back foot. Maybe momentum isn't with him, or something just seems a little bit off here late in the season. And that could give a glimmer of hope for his fellow drivers. The last thing he wants to do is to give them that extra motivation to try and beat him.
Indeed, Joe, but I will say this. Until we get these qualifying times down, I'm not going to read too much into what happened last week. Homestead is just such a unique circuit that these drivers come to. It's one that almost nobody had really any experience on. It's a little bit different in terms of the ways it's set up. It's much more of a sort of Mickey Mouse type circuit compared to a lot of the other traditional FIA Grade 1 type tracks that this GT3 AM series is going to. So let's wait and see. I think the proof in the pudding will be this race. If Trepanier is able to come back, get on pole, keep running some good laps, we've got nothing to worry about. If he struggles again, then I'm going to side with you.
I'm watching Nathan Nicholson while we've got one of our BMWs here on screen. This is Vincent, I believe, that we are watching. Now, Nicholson's coming through Dunlop right now, and that was surprisingly a difficult corner for many drivers. There you see him coming out of it there and into the Degners. We saw multiple spins and incidents through that long, sweeping left-hander. It's in Formula One cars, which we usually see here, DJ, it's pretty easy flat out, it seems, most time. But in these GT cars, what do you think is causing so many to have issues?
Well, I think it's just the fact that the angle of the corners and the curbing is very, very tough. When you take this track in an open wheeler, you've got to be very careful of the curves. GT cars kind of give you a little bit more of a false sense of security. They can take the dings over the curbs and not have any suspension damage, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have suspension travel over the course of the car. And so when that happens and you're too aggressive with the curbs, you're going to get a little bit out of whack, and that will throw off the handling of the car. And I think that's really more of what we were seeing last night.
So far, so good for Nicholson. Let's see if this lap will count for him. They get 4 of these, and I don't believe they're going to get all 4 of them in because it does take some time to get around. You can see without a lap set at all on the board, we're already 6 minutes to go. Nicholson's the first, and it's a 58.4. Now we wait for Trepanier to try and match that.
We do indeed, as we've got a couple more times coming on. Campbell's able to come up into P2, Norris into P2 above him, Kwok Nin down in 7th, a little bit surprising from him. Swindells, Bowie Suin, but here comes Trepanier.
Definitely not faster here, as he is very close, as 16 thousandths of a second separate the 56 and the 87. And then from there on down, you already mentioned Norris, 4 tenths behind them. So it is going to be a 2-horse race from the looks of things right now.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Just very, very tight. A lot of the story of what we've seen from this season. Let's keep our eyes focused here on Trepignet. This is really where you can start to get an idea of how that car is handling coming up through the snake, Joe. This is a sequence of corners that if you make a minor bobble in the beginning, it'll throw you off for the rest of it. All right, here he comes through the Degners. Big chunk of curb, able to keep it together. See if he takes a little bit more there. And again, all right, that tells me that he's got a little bit of a softer suspension setup there. He was able to take those big curves quite well.
Certainly doesn't seem afraid of it. And we're missing maybe about 10 cars here on our first flying lap, so hopefully they can get back around with a clean one soon, since they're at most only going to get 3 in. We ride with Trepignet up the Spoon Curve. Let's see how he takes the curbs here.
It didn't look like the best line there. Late apex into the second part of Spoon. That's going to be a little bit difficult for him, but we'll have to see if he's able to get any time maximized out. Between him and Nicholson, this sounds like it's going to be a very, very tight race.
And Nathan was not able to improve that time. Ethan Tavitas did, though. He bumps himself up to third and is ahead of Zanadakis, and now Kevin Norris on his second lap gets third right back.
All right, so Caven, who has been threatening for most of this season, looks good. That looked like a little bit of a wide run there off of the Casio Triangle for Vincent Trepignet. He's going to be slower on that lap, Joe.
They each get one more try here. And, wow, Norris came within 600ths of Trepignet, so Caven might be a fly in the ointment here. Oh, but he parked and is coming back out now, which means his qualifying is done because he doesn't have enough time for both an out lap and a flyer.
No, he does not. Here comes Scardura as he's working his way. Is he able to improve? Yes, he is. Big jump there for Fabio. That'll only get him 17th.
Vargas is going to be the next one across. He hasn't set a time yet. Lucio looks like, oh, he's just starting his only flyer is what this one is going to be. And then Burmeister is the last that we're waiting for a time on in the 74. First lap got deleted. As the BMW clean this time through, he doesn't hold it tight to the inside. And it is a 2-flat-1. Good enough for 18th, leaving us with only Vargas to try and set a lap. Already, Nicholson is coming through 130R up towards the triangle. Let's see if he can go any farther ahead of Trepignet just to make himself safer. This is frighteningly close for that 56 car, and just a slight improvement from the 87 could snatch the pole away, and he doesn't improve.
All right, so it's now all down to Vincent Trepignet to see what he's got. If he is able to pip it, here comes Devin Horvath, though. Let's see if this Porsche is able to put in a better time. Good lines there through the Casio Triangle, keeps it off of the grass, but he's going to call it quits.
Up next, Trepignet. There you see the NTR Motorsports driver, and he's also abandoning his lap. Does Kevin Norris have an open goal? No, sorry, Norris had already exited. So, well then, our front row came to a bit of a less dramatic end than we anticipated.
Yeah, it really is. But, I mean, you know, Joe, we're talking about Trepignet and Nicholson, that battle between the two. That's an amazing time from Trepignet, I really have to say. I just think it's Nicholson that was able to pip him right at the line. It may not be a case of Trepignet losing a little bit of his mojo. It may just be a little bit more of Nicholson upping his game.
Got one car that's able to set a lap here, and that's going to be Lucio Vargas and the 710. He comes around and crosses 59.7, and that will put him into 16th. That is a much-needed jump for him. Nobody else is close enough to be able to set a time from here on out. That means our grid is set. Let's go through that order. Nathan Nicholson barely ahead of Trepignet, but he does get the pole and the valuable bonus points. Then it is Trepignet next to him as Norris starts from third. Could be someone to challenge them over the course of the race if he can keep that speed up. Tavitas will be to his outside at the green. Zanadakis will start from fifth as Devin Horvath is sixth. Then it's Louise Reedy in at P7 and Rob Campbell in the 8th position. Philippe Magnan, P9 for him, will be followed by Claude Belval, the last of the top 10.
In 11th, it'll be Gabriel Moreau, followed by Kwok Nin with Michael Pavolano and Jean-Claude Langlois in row 7. 15th will be Alexandre Breton, followed by Lucio Vargas with Richard Swindells and Fabio Scardura lining up behind them. 19th, it's Jason Burmeister, and rounding out your top 20, it will be Marc-André Desjardins.
Paul Espina starts in 21st with David Morse in 22nd. Then it's Chet Miller, P23, and Bowie Suin in the 24th spot. Alrighty, as the drivers get gridded up, not really much change in the way of the weather. We've seen a little bit of cloud cover here and there, but the temperatures have remained stable between practice and now the race that we grid for. We got the preview last night, but that preview did show us that the first lap had plenty of troubles in store for the drivers if they don't keep their head on a swivel, DJ. Do you think that maybe they had witnessed last night and learned a lesson, or is this going to be a bit treacherous?
I think it's going to be a little bit treacherous no matter what. The first turn at Suzuka here is the first turn at Suzuka. Going up through the S's, it's tough. It's a little bit hotter out on track. The tires are going to be a little bit more up to temperature, but you put so much lateral load coming up through the snake. It is just so hard to get right, even when you're running by yourself on cold tires, let alone with 24 other GT3s around you.
Well, they've just about got all 24 GT3s on the grid now. We're just waiting on Burmeister and Vargas. And, looks like they are out there because the pace car has now taken off. I do see Espina starting from pit lane in the meantime. And you can see it's not a full pace lap. They start just before 130R. And then they will be released out of the Casio Triangle. Nathan Nicholson will be trying to see if he can get win number 3 over his rival, but again, he is not really in the championship. He's 90 points back. He had a DNF earlier this season at his qualification, and then first round, he only scored a mere 3 points as they come off the corner. Oh, and I thought he almost looked like he checked him up a bit. I wonder if that might be a penalty post-race. We'll find out later, but in the meantime, green flag is out, and Nicholson is well ahead of Norris, who's got the jump on Trepignet and into second. This is bad news for Vincent as they fly into the first corner. Who is going to be able to cycle in here cleanly? Oh, and spinning off from second place, Kevin Norris immediately loses what he gained.
I'm not sure if that was contact, Joe, or if that was just a little bit too much speed through the second part of the first corner, but it looks like the rest of the field able to get through here relatively calmly as they work their way up the S as we focus on Nico Xanadakis now in 4th place.
Well, I thought that was going to be a headache for Vincent Trepignet, having to not only try and overtake Nicholson, but Kevin Norris, but that headache went away quite quickly. And watching our 4th place, Xanadakis chasing the Porsche of Tavitas down into the Degners. Will they all get safely through here on the first lap? They're thankfully going single file throughout the field into those corners as somebody is off, and that is Moreau.
It is indeed. So somebody falling curse to the Degners already, but Moreau at least able to keep going here in these early stages.
And gets back on track just as his teammate comes through and spins it. So a bad day for him, unfortunately. But Nathan Nicholson still leads. Trepignet 0.7 of a second behind as they come off of the spoon curve. Tavitas back there again, also by roughly 0.7 of a second. They're spread out a little bit, not drastically. The real question is how their pace looks over the full race.
Exactly. We saw some drivers that looked a little bit sluggish here early on, and once the fuel burned off, the tires wore in a little bit, they were able to get a little bit more speed coming through 130R. Right now, as they dive into the Casio Triangle, doesn't look like any of about the top 10 are going for any sort of bonsai move here. Everybody keeping it nice and easy. There you can see, though, Nicholson trying to break the draft, but we're going to jump back to a replay.
I think this is... We're looking at the 86, and we're looking for our spinner. There's Norris, the 774. And he was all on his own. There was no contact at all. So I'm kind of baffled. This looks kind of similar to what we saw in the first lap with, I'm trying to remember who it was in the pro class that spun through Dunlop. This just came much sooner in the lap.
Yeah, Joe, I'm not sure if he maybe got a little bit unsettled on that inside curbing or if he just tried.
Oh, that's Scardura, and I don't think that's how the car is supposed to look.
No, I don't think it's supposed to be wedged there into that. All right, so we're going to watch what happens here. This is coming up through the high points of the snake right now. Into the right-hander, up into... Whoa! Just loses control, a little bit of snap oversteer, and right into the wall.
Well, that is a certain way to give yourself a tow to the pits because, yeah, you can see it is very stuck in the tire barrier now, and he had to just pop it back in. So as we come back live, no changes up at the front. Nicholson, Trepanier, Tavitas. However, looks like Ethan falling off a little bit. It's up to 1.6 seconds, and Vincent closing in slightly. It's down to 0.5 of a second.
And Nicholson is very worried here, Joe. Remember we saw him briefly before we went back to replay, weaving on the main straightaway. Well, he was doing the same thing coming down on the backstretch, just trying to break that toe from Trepanier. I think he feels the pressure from behind. He's very worried about it as Trepanier sets the fastest lap of the race.
Trepanier has got the bit between his teeth here. I think he intends to try and challenge Nicholson. He could just sit back and collect another second place. He wouldn't really be in a bad spot for the championship. So we hop on board with the 87 now. Seeing just that lone car in front of him. So he could play the points game here and try and ride this one out. But if I know Vincent, I think he wants this win.
I think he does too, but I also think he's not going to do anything too crazy. If the opportunity presents itself, he'll go for it, but he is not going to sacrifice everything to make that overtake.
Falls back to 0.6 of a second once again. First real close battle we've got is honestly between Reedy and Horvath, and there you see them on screen. Horvath in the white Porsche, chasing the black BMW of Reedy just in front of him. They're also towing along Rob Campbell just behind them. Credit to Rob Campbell, came over from the GT4s the previous season to the GT3s this season and has shown he is just as good in the faster cars.
Ooh, that was a little bit of a bobble there from Reedy coming through the first part of Spoon. See Horvath taking a chunk of the inside curbing. He's got a pretty good run here. It looks like Reedy's going to streak away a little bit, looking at that speed differential. Horvath now starting to gain up on some speed. He'll probably lose a little bit through 130R. Indeed, backs off there, so not on the full attack here quite yet.
Certainly not. But behind him, Rob Campbell is allowed to gain on them because of that moment. He's had 3 top 5s so far this season and is also third in the points championship. So yeah, he's representing himself extremely well, making the transition to this version of the AM series, which has far more drivers in it than what we saw with the GT4. So a lot more competition. And down into turn 1, he's fallen back slightly from Horvath himself. It looks like even these GT3 cars suffer the same thing. Oh, is behind him, going way wide. Rob Campbell is suddenly offline, and he collects it up, but he is now threatened by Belval and Magnon, along with Quinn.
Well, and it looked like there, Joe, that diving into the first left-hander in the snake, he may have just touched the outside grass, trying to straighten out that line as much as possible. Able to gather it back up, able to keep going. Ooh, looking like a little bit of a presentation there behind him, but yeah, Campbell very lucky to get away with that without too much damage.
Kept it on the track, didn't spin it out. And he's got to make up, let's see, it looks like about 1.2 seconds to Horvath, who I think just had a go at Reedy, but was not able to make the pass on him there. So that one is tightening up along with the one we were just watching. Now we head over to Louise being chased by Devin. And he thought about what you mentioned earlier in this broadcast, that pass into Spoon, but then decided against it.
Yeah, and that was really precipitated by he had a mega run out of the hairpin, and he's got an even better one coming out of Spoon. That is going to be Horvath down to the inside. If he can muscle his way and keep there, he may have a good line going into 130R. They're going to be side by side between that flat-out corner, a little bit of a wiggle, and a spin from Reedy.
Oh, and everybody has to avoid, but not able to in the end, as it looks like Reedy gets hit by Magnon and Kwok Nin. I think at least one more car got involved. It looks like Claude Belval.
Yeah, just got pushed wide, and there, everybody trying to avoid it. You are absolutely flat out at that point. Unsighted contact. Oh, that'll wake you up in the morning, Joe.
We need an onboard with the 93. Robbie Campbell did a beautiful job saving this car, and he's grateful for the paved runoff, I think, because that's I think, all that saved him. Otherwise, he would have been shooting straight into the barrier. Here is from Campbell's perspective. You can see it starting to happen ahead, so he at least had warning that something was bubbling up here. But then watch once the car ahead starts to send up some smoke here.
There he goes down.
You've got few choices right now, DJ, and he made the right one.
I want Robbie Campbell to buy me a lottery ticket because that is the luckiest break I have seen in a long time, Joe.
Honestly, may have been helped by him having his slip up earlier in the lap, because he would have been a lot closer to them and maybe had less time to try and get around him. So I guess it all comes in swings and roundabouts, and he is inheriting 6. Behind him, the battle continues. You can see that is Pablano and Breton chasing each other down for 7th, and it looks like I think Langlois just behind as well.
Yeah, indeed. And remember, Alexander Breton was involved in a lot of that close battling from last week. He's going to tuck up behind Pablano here through 130R and going to look to the outside, going down into the Casio Triangle. Hold it back here. Takes a wider entrance into the corner. Tries to carry that momentum. Watch for him here. He's got a good run coming out of Casio Triangle. He's going to have a run down the main straight. I think he may try to have a move into the first corner.
Certainly looking like it. As he stalks him, Pablano does not cover him off. Well, now he tries to, but it's way too late to shut the door. And down to the inside, Breton has it done. He is into 7th.
Absolutely textbook. Pablano tried to fight back a little bit through the first part of the snake, but once Breton had that inside line, there was really nothing he could do. Now he's just got to try to gather up the pieces and keep on going.
Don't need to go to it, but Burmeister had a spin that almost took out Caven Norris, who is all the way up to 12th already on lap 6. So great recovery from the 774, but he's still not within the top 10. And based on what I'm seeing, I don't think a podium is looking possible for him today.
He is the only driver out there to crack down into the 158s, Joe, with a 158.972. So fastest car out on the track, but just mired down in the field courtesy of that spin.
It's a real shame. You have to think that there was speed in the car, and he probably would have been challenging for the victory if he hadn't have had that early mistake. But we're already past 10 minutes into this event, so a quarter of the way in. We should see the pit window open up soon, but we haven't had any scheduled stops. The only drivers who've been in have been due to damage. Belval, Reedy, and Scardura all taking repairs. Moreau and Magnon are official DNFs.
Yeah, so we keep our eyes here. That battle with Breton trying to streak away. Pablano doing a good job to stay in behind him. And he's got to keep in the back of his head that he can't be too aggressive because Jean-Claude Langlois is right there behind him in that BMW. 3 BMWs here in a line. Just got to be a little bit careful about that.
Yeah, but they're all on even footing then, except for setup, as they've got the same make of car. So their strengths are the other drivers' strengths right now. And coming up into turn 1, nobody can find an edge to try and get to the inside. in this fast little kink leading into turn 2. Our leaders are still about as we left them, with Nicholson leading Trepanier by 0.4 of a second, and Trepanier still a second and a half ahead of Tavitas. But look at how close behind Breton the car of Pavolano is getting into the S's. Certainly seems like he's got a much more stable car here through the twisty bits.
Yeah, he is just able to hug down on those apexes all the more, Joe. Keep it together nice and easy. Now they come up through the Degners. Yeah, you can see softer suspension there, I think, for the 101, just able to handle those curbs. Woo! Little bit sideways there on the exit of Degner, too. He's very close here. I doubt he's going to go for a move into the hairpin, and indeed, that was a little bit of a cover-off there from Alexandre Breton, but gets better speed on exit. Down on the inside. Oh, a little bit of wheel spin, though, prevents him from making a good move.
Yeah, just got too eager on that one, but Breton is still within range. Don't think Michael will try a pass here. He would be kind of foolhardy to do so, and no, he's going to stay in line. Langlois closing in behind them after those tiny little errors that we've been seeing out of them, and onto the front stretch where they start to pick up speed. The slipstream will pull them in tighter.
Yes, it will. It's just a matter of who is going to get the best part of it there, whether it's Langlois or Pavolano. Jinking their way there through 130R. Maybe a little bit of a lift there from Pavolano. It looked like he lost a little bit of time. Kind of pokes his nose down to the inside of Breton, just trying to scare him off. This is very similar to how Breton got on by. Here comes Pavolano. He's going to be tucked up right behind, and that is not too far behind for Langlois as well.
3 cars nose to tail here as we start lap 8. Breton does not cover off yet. Looks like Langlois is going to be the first to make a move now. Pavolano follows as he pokes his nose, but he can't get the overlap that he needs.
Thought about trying to dive it down into the second part of the corner there, but Breton, a little bit wise to any of those maneuvers, was able to chop down on that line. Now, Pavolano is just going to have to hold up behind. Langlois lost about a tenth there through that whole interaction. I think he had to check up, and he looks a little bit offline coming up through the snake. I said if you miss that first part of it, it can throw you off for the whole part of it. So I think that's what happened to Langlois, but Pavolano, I'm very impressed here. Breton got by him. I expected that 89 to pull away into the distance, but Pavolano has kept this a battle.
If they keep this up, though, let's not forget about Lucio Vargas back there in the 710 machine. He's been reeling them in as well as they break now into the hairpin. Another little look from Jean-Claude. Oh, and another slip up from Pavolano. He does not like that slow corner exit, and Jean-Claude is going to have a great opportunity at Spoon Curve if he's daring. Looks like Pavolano's going to cover off the inside. He'll be shallow here, though, as they try and go too wide into the corner, but Michael successfully defends, and now they really have brought Vargas to them.
They have indeed. It may be a little bit of a slow exit there for Pavolano. Indeed, Langlois looking like he's got some good speed right now as they streak down the backstretch towards 130R. There's a little bit of a poke to the inside for Langlois, just trying to see what he can find out about Pavolano's defensive maneuvers. They go down into the Casio triangle. Nobody popping out just yet, but let's see the exit out of the corner.
The one that's really loving this is Rob Campbell ahead of them, because he's been pulling away lap after lap as they all fight amongst themselves. And down the front stretch once more. This time, instead, it is Langlois leading Vargas with Pavolano at the front of them. Nobody able to get something done this time into the first couple corners. Don't really have many other battles out there on track right now, at least not ones that are getting hot. We've had cars looming like this. This is for 4th place. Anadakis leads Horvath, but they're stuck at about half a second apart. And, did Trepanier have a mistake? Because he was 0.6 of a second behind just moments ago, and now he's a full second behind. I'm double checking to see.
Yeah, I'm doing the same, Joe. He looked a little bit squirrely right there coming out of the hairpin. Ooh, but Horvath's starting to look a little bit aggressive here on Nico Zanadakis, starting to put pressure to that BMW.
Yeah, I tried to see, and the best I could find was that Trepanier looked a little wide out of Degner too. But that's it. But man, it didn't seem like it cost him as much as it did as we continue to watch from onboard Horvath up ahead, much closer than that fight for the lead is now. Maybe Nicholson is just kind of turning on the afterburners at this stage now that we're just about to the halfway mark.
He may be, but I can also report I was watching Vincent Trepanier coming out of Spoon. That car looked very, very squirrely, the rear end dancing around on him. So I wonder, as he gets into that lower fuel load like we talked about, if that car is just not handling the way that he wants it to. Got to keep our eyes focused here, though, as Horvath really starting to amp up that pressure on Nico Zanadakis. Zanadakis got a good run there out of the Casio Triangle, but the draft here for Horvath, let's see if he can make something out of it.
He's getting close, but there's a defensive maneuver from Zanadakis, just making sure that he sends up that warning flag. Don't try and pass quite yet, because I'm going to hold you off if possible. Now into the snake once again. Now, are they being caught, I wonder, by Robbie Campbell? Last lap, Horvath a 59.8, Campbell with a 59.7. Ooh. And they were, he was faster the previous lap as well. So yes, they are going to be joined by the 93 if this trend keeps up.
And rest assured that Devin Horvath is going to be watching those relatives, and that may put a little bit more pressure on him to try to get by Zanadakis if he feels like he's getting held up a little bit, because he does not want that Ferrari coming up behind him.
Certainly not. And again, this is for just outside of the podium places that we've been watching these battles for fourth, essentially, between Zanadakis and Horvath. And Horvath is much closer. Zanadakis, is he going to stay on the racing line into Spoon? My advice would be so. And yes, he's not going to defend, but Devin looming ever closer. It seems like nearly every corner now off of Spoon. He goes for as much traction as he can get that right foot down into, and it is very good. Immediately weaving to the inside. Now he's feeling threatened. The 07 has to try and cover him off as they come towards 130R. Last time this happened at this race, it went bad in a big way, but this time it looks like Horvath is not willing to risk the car as he backed out.
Yeah, he did, and I think what he was actually trying to do there was force Zanadakis into a mistake, and he almost did. Clipped that inside curb coming through 130R, but look at the run he got out of Casio. This is also excellent for Devin Horvath. Gets just enough slipstream. Now is going to try this on the outside of that BMW.
Horvath is going to have to be very good on the binders. Let's hope he's got a stable car into here. As he goes the long way around, he hangs tough down through turn 2. Now it's going to give him the inside into the snake. Look at that. The white Porsche is not done with it, though. Coming back at him. Not willing to give up. Zanadakis carries this on side by side into the snake, almost banging doors as they nearly come together. And now Robbie Campbell is into the fray as finally Horvath gives it up. Zanadakis with a mighty defense.
That was some of the best driving I have seen out of Nico Zanadakis this entire season, Joe. Just absolutely foot to the floor, all-out racing. And as you said, Robbie Campbell, oh, that's a spin from Horvath!
Oh, after all that, that was such a good race from the 32, and his own mistake has thrown it away. He almost came back right in the path of Richard Swindell's. Here's the incident. Oh, it was already going by the time he turned in. Didn't, there you saw him pull in front of Swindell's there, but didn't hit the wall. And he doesn't have any damage, but he has lost a fair bit of time.
Yeah, he has, and so that'll bump him all the way down into 12th place. Doing just a quick check-in on our leaders here. Nicholson has been able to grow that gap out to about 1.5 seconds as they break down into the Casio Triangle here. And we are over halfway in this race. I anticipate pit stops getting pulled on here within about 3 minutes. The normal window that we see is between about 15 and about 8 minutes to go, Joe.
2 races that Nicholson has been able to win so far were Miami last time and then out at Hungary the time before. And this one, not quite like those. fact, I'd be hard-pressed to figure out a thread between all three of them. But whatever the case may be, Nicholson seems to really like certain tracks because Trepanier seems to have no answer for him whenever he does. Oh, and Vargas is in pit lane. So it looks like he's taking his scheduled stops. David Morse is our only other driver to have come down and gotten his fuel and gotten back out. But Burmeister joins them as well. And we're watching Pablano in 7th place on screen, sandwiched between Breton and Langlois.
And this is that battle that we were watching earlier on in the race. Pablano just absolutely keeping up the pressure on Breton here. Very much trying to see what he can do. And remember, there goes Pablano on the exit of Degner 2 with same mistake and hitting into the wall.
Think it wasn't hard enough that it'll cost him too much in the way of damage. Certainly, okay, there we go. After a 50-point turn, he's on his way. The 101 just gave up a big bit of position there, and that sends him to 10th. Horvath even fell farther than that. He's down in 12th, and he was ahead of Pablano before that happened. So that tells you how much time can be lost just from that one spin in that one corner.
Yeah, and looking at the back of Pablano's car, it doesn't look like there's any damage to the diffuser or the rear wing, but I am noticing some slight damage to the right rear bodywork, the hood, and the side pods, the tire guards, a little bit bent out of shape. Oh, no, and there goes another. That's Kevin Norris.
For the second time in this race, he spins it. And he did make contact, unfortunately. Last time he didn't. Slams into the wall out of 130R. Takes a while to get going. Oh, and I think he sent somebody off track. Desjardins maybe distracted by the returning car. Don't think Marc-Andre hit anything. Actually helps out Devin Horvath, who's on his recovery drive. And you can see he's trying to weave to break the slipstream. As Horvath has got the shot. Does he take it? No.
No, but just waiting to hope there. No, he wasn't able to bite on it. He was hoping, I think, that Desjardins would have overshot the first corner there a little bit, but Horvath is just going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, climbing up through the S's here, able to take a little bit of a narrower line through the second part of him. He looks a little bit more planted, I have to say. Up ahead, Desjardins looking a little bit offline through there.
Again, not seeing drastic weather changes. It's up slightly. That should not be affecting these cars as much as we are seeing. This has got to be down to drivers just losing focus. And it is a tough course. We are in the PRL GT AM series, so maybe not quite as skilled as we've been seeing with the pros as we continue to watch Horvath threaten on Marc-Andre. Hopefully he doesn't have yet another spin, as this is a very good exit.
Very good exit indeed. Let's see what he can make of it. This is coming up into Spoon. We saw a couple of aggressive moves there last night. Not going to do it here.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of a lift. Oh, and he's off into the AstroTurf. He is pushing limits out there. We also saw spins from that in the Pro class. And Trepanier is pitting. Trepanier gives up his second place temporarily to be the first to bite. Can he pull a trick over those around him? Robbie Campbell's going to join. Oh, and on screen, another wreck. Desjardins is off. Did Horvath get a piece of it?
Let's go back and check out the replay here, Joe. This was another incident. Drivers going too wide into 130R.
He tipped him.
Oh.
Just felt a little ambitious. He was on a recovery, so I'm sure the red mist was down. Desjardins has had to head into pit lane. Horvath continues on, but that was a pretty big impact.
Yes, it was. And Joe, I was just doing a little bit of research because I was curious why we were seeing so many drivers having those problems out of the second Degner. Got a little bit of a theory here. We've got anywhere between 8 to 10 miles an hour of gusting wind out of the east right now. That is a direct cross breeze as they come out of Degner 2. I think the cars are getting buffeted and slowing them off a little bit. I think that's what's happening.
Good call on that one. And yeah, the cars are on a knife's edge at that part of the lap. Horvath now having to try and catch up to Caven Norris. Caven back up into P8, so top 10 achieved, at least at this stage. He's been helped out by a couple drivers to have pitted. Campbell, Pabalano, Vargas have all been in. I think Campbell's the only one you're going to see him lose a spot to once he pits in. Horvath has definitely been Mr. Excitement here tonight in that white Porsche. But he's going to have to come and pit at some point, and I suspect that might be this lap because Nathan Nicholson now pits.
Well, the question here is if some of these drivers are able to save a little bit, you can do it here at Suzuka. I think Nicholson coming, this may be the end of the fuel cycle, as Tavitas and Xanadakis both coming in behind Nicholson. We'll now just have to see what Trepanier is able to do if he was able to put in a good enough hot lap to maybe get himself closer to Nathan Nicholson.
Yeah, it needs to be a very good lap because it was about a second and a half behind still. So he needs a monster bit of difference there. And already Nicholson is rolling. And he's not even close enough. Yeah, Trepanier will get back into second. But as the time settles in, they were about even on the pit stops. But it comes out to 2.8 seconds. So I think Trepanier lost time in that exchange.
Yes, he did. Just looking at the times they were there. Interestingly, though, Devin Horvath able to keep out one last lap. He's the only driver to have not taken a pit stop thus far, bumping his way up to third place right now.
Here's where that is very interesting. He's had 2 spins so far, or 2 big moments, and that costs you fuel. Might not seem like a lot, but when you're working with his margins as small as these guys do, I'm kind of surprised that he is still out there rolling. So the 32 off of Degner 2, and he's into third place, but he's going to have to give a lot of them back. Tavitas right behind him right now, already having taken his pit stop. He is his teammate, so the good news is, while they are off sequence, and this causes a bit of an issue for Ethan, he at least has someone who I would assume is going to be cooperative because he knows the situation.
You would certainly hope so on that, and rest assured that there may be a little bit of team communication going on there between those two machines. But I anticipate Horvath pulling off here this lap. A little bit squirrely there in the middle part of Spoon, just not able to get the power down exactly as he wanted to. The car looking a little slippy and slidey there. And remember, these drivers are not taking tires on this pit stop. That's just too much time. So he'll have to manage that if he's got a little bit of tire wear.
Coming up to the pit entry now, and we should finally see Horvath pit. Yes, he is in. So where does this put Caven Norris in the end? Is he going to be ahead of Devin Horvath here? I think it's going to be tight.
Yeah, it's going to be very tight indeed. It looks like Horvath is just coming through, or excuse me, Norris is just coming through 130R there. You can see him on your screen. It's a relatively quick pit stop here at Suzuka. Coming through right now, Horvath stationary in the box now. Norris is going to be on full power blasting down this straightaway.
And it looks like, it's going to be Norris into 9th place as Horvath just didn't have the oomph to get back out ahead. And Pabalano just barely snuck through as well. So Devin, who started this race in 6th place, is now all the way down into 11th spot. And he is going to be kicking himself for what could have been a much better day.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple of drivers out there doing that here, but we still have about 8.5 minutes to go here, Joe. Now, obviously, some pretty long lap times, so not that many laps left. But there's still time to try to catch up for some of these drivers. I guarantee you Horvath is going to be pushing as hard as he can to try to close in. The other close battle we've got is Rob Campbell in the battle for P4 right now. He's within a second of Nico Xanadakis up ahead of him.
That's about the closest we've got through much of the field here, with 8 minutes left to go. And Kevin Norris's problems makes this an interesting one, because he is our closest driver to Vincent Trepanier coming into this race. He's all the way down in 9th. Rob Campbell mildly doing better, but he's still only looking at a top 5 currently. He's 3rd in the points, and neither of them are going to be gaining on Vincent. Only Nathan Nicholson will be doing that, and again, he is right now 90 points behind before we score today's race. So it's honestly, I said it before, Vincent can point race for the rest of this season, and right now, even though he's 3.7 seconds back, you can't be too panicky about this one as we look at the 93.
Yeah, you can't panic too much. You've got to think about a little bit of these races, a little bit like Alain Prost, just focusing in on getting the maximum points and keeping that lead as best as possible. Oh, Joe, okay, that is going to be Horvath making a move on Pabolano, going down the main straightaway. He's down to the inside. Here they come later on the brakes. Is Horvath move done?
Back into the top 10 now. If he wants to catch Norris, he's got to make up 2.2 seconds at about 6 minutes. Now, that is going to be a tough ask, especially on a fast driver like Norris, who, does he still have the fastest lap? Yes, he does. So that's another interesting one. Fastest lap bonus going to go to the 7.74.
Yeah, it is. But looking at his latest laps, he has been, I would categorize it as aggressively average, if not slow. Norris's last lap last time out was a 2-minute flat, 2 minutes, 0.6 seconds. And so he is a little bit slower than pretty much everybody else in front of him in line. Horvath's time will obviously a little bit thrown out because he came out of the pits there.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, hard to judge when they have just exited pit lane. Down to the final 5 minutes of this 8th round, and Nathan Nicholson is looking to take his 3rd. It'll be his first back-to-back of the season if he does this here today. And back to Rob Campbell once again, just behind Xanadakis. He wants this 4th place. Xanadakis is actually a couple positions down from him. It's about 99 points back from the leader, so that is looks like actually an even 30 points. No, 20 points, excuse me, between the pair of them. No, 30 points. I had it right the first time. That's still a fair distance to try and make up. So he definitely wants to try and gain whatever he can to get positions here. Even if you can't take the overall win, higher finishing position is a nice little feather in your cap in the stats. Out of the S's and into the Dunlop curve. Xanadakis not showing any weaknesses right now. The Ferrari has been trying to keep himself within range of the BMW, but we're not seeing much in the way of mistakes out of Nico.
No, and indeed, he drove a very good defensive line, as you saw on screen, going down the start-finish straight there, just kind of planting that car in the middle of the track, trying to break a little bit of the draft back to Campbell and his Ferrari. Xanadakis really, really looks in control here. Good run out of the hairpin. He's able to expand that gap up to about 0.5 of a second, just keeping him at bay. Campbell getting very late on the brakes, though, going into Spoon.
Trying to close that down. Don't need to go to it, but Chet Miller's the latest victim of Dunlop, as he's found his way into the wall from there. That was his own doing as he spun off after hitting the grass. Ooh, and things looking a little bit tense now coming into 130R as he's setting him up. Campbell's thinking about it. No, doesn't poke his nose. Needs to get a little bit closer than that. Can he reel him in by those 0.5 of a second within the next 2 laps, which I think is what they have left in this race?
Yeah, I believe so too, Joe. And I think Campbell was a little bit scuppered there. He took a little bit of the inside curbing coming through 130R, and that sent him off a little bit. Again, though, closing in down that start-finish straight, that Ferrari looking very slippery in a straight line, especially coming out of the Casio Triangle. But it's really in the second sector of this track that Xanadakis is just able to pull away. He keeps seeming to get a great run out of the hairpin and be able to hold Campbell at bay into Spoon. If I'm Rob Campbell, I know I'm better on the brakes going up into that corner at the top of the hill, but I've got to be a little bit careful with tire wear, the track heating up just a little bit more. One wrong millimeter of braking could send him off and into that outside runoff, and that could be battle done for Campbell.
David Morse heading off in 130R. The car gets going again, but he's the last driver on the lead lap currently. Actually made contact with Luis Reedy. It's a bit of a strange one. Not sure if we really want to replay of it, especially with how close this is getting right here for that fourth position. Each time Campbell coming out of those slow corners gets good acceleration. It's looking tempting. I'm sure he's feeling tempted. But it looks like, the fruit of temptation is too much, and he outbrakes himself into Spoon. Now he's going to have to make up those 7/10 all over again.
That's exactly what I was talking about, Joe. Just getting a little bit too greedy on the binders there going into Spoon. He looked good on the last lap, but you can't tempt fate with those kind of moves. He does have a little bit of speed differential by about 3 or 4 miles an hour as they work their way now down into 130R. But that gap is now holding at about, good underbraking again, though. It's back down to about 0.5 of a second as they exit the Casio Triangle, and they will take the white flag here across the line.
All right, so Nicholson just a little bit up the road ahead of Trepanier by 3.9 seconds, so almost 4 seconds there. And then they've got Robbie Campbell still hunting the 07 through turns 1 and 2. Really needs to try and send one in at this stage. Have to weigh the risks, see if he's got a spot where an opening will show itself, that he can't wind up taking both of them out. But if he wants that fourth place, as close as he's been getting, he's just got to go for it.
He really does, and he's also got to think about the championship. You said it. He's third right now in the points. Doesn't want to throw a good result away right here. So he's got to weigh those balances here as he drives his way through the Degner 2 for one last time. Looks close again. He's just got to try to maximize his exit here out of the hairpin. That looks like that's been his bane the past couple of laps. Let's see what he can do. Good under braking. Not a lot of wheel spin. Good exit there, though, for Xanadakis, but it does look like Campbell's a little closer than he has been.
He's not as close as last lap, though, and certainly not able to try anything here. His last shot is going to be into the Casio Triangle, and he needs a magnificent exit out of Spoon. But this man has had a magnificent race. The 56 comes up to the Casio Triangle for the last time. And for the third time this season, Nathan Nicholson will take the victory, this time here in Japan.
A great drive for Nicholson on that comeback. And again, just really, really good from him, trying to make Trepanier a little bit nervous. Trepanier will cross the line in P2. Oh, we've got a race to the line, though. Campbell trying to get what he can. That looked like a little bit of wheel spin for Xanadakis. I don't think it's going to be enough. Xanadakis just able to hold it out.
1/10 of a second between them at the line. And we see Langlois here in 7th place, going to be able to bring that one home. Devin Horvath has caught up to Caven Norris, but Caven Norris is going to stay safe enough to at least get 9th. That is little consolation, I'm sure, for the 774.
Yeah, he's not going to be happy with that. We watched Lucio Vargas here as he makes his way around that final corner. One of the Lamborghinis out there today. He's actually holding the highest finishing Lambo there in P13.
Looks like Boknin going to beat Desjardins to the line for 14th, and that is among the last of our drivers on the lead lap. David Morse is going to complete all 21 laps. That takes us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced Sim Racing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-Box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware, and that's why we want to create something that's really going to reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
Welcome back. We just watched the 8th race of the season here for the PRL GT3 Amateur Series, and at Suzuka, it was Nathan Nicholson who took home his 3rd win of the season. Vincent Trepignet didn't quite have the pace. It was mighty close in qualifying, and in the end, Vincent just fell back enough that it was about 4 seconds at the line. Tavitas claimed 3rd with Zanadakis in P4 as Robbie Campbell climbed his way from 8th to 5th. Breton, a bit of a quiet one for him, though we did see him in some battles throughout the race, but he went from 15th to 6th, so nice gain of 9, as Langlois was 7th, and then it was Swindells finishing P8 from 17th, and poor Kevin Norris spun on the very first lap of this race after getting into 2nd place. Started from 3rd, had to settle for 9th. Devin Horvath just behind him at the line as he finished 10th.
Michael Pavolano, who was involved in a lot of battles there over the course of the race, came home in 11th, followed by Paul Espina, who started from pit lane and was our highest mover on the day, up 9 positions. Lucio Vargas was 13th, followed by Kwok Min in 14th, with Marc-Andre Desjardins in 15th and Chet Miller behind him. David Morse was your last driver on the lead lap in 17th, with Jason Burmeister a lap down. Bowie Suin had a late race wreck, caused him to be 4 lap down, and Claude Bevel was 7 laps down in 20th.
Louise Reedy was the last one to see the checkered flag, and everybody from there on down was a DNF, sadly, today. And there were certainly enough drivers getting into incidents that I think only 3 of them is a bit of a blessing. But Nathan Nicholson with the win has managed to rack up his 3rd. The Mid-South driver joins us now. Nathan, I don't know if you took a look at the gaps after that qualifying session. We thought that this was going to be extremely tight at the front, and though it was at the beginning, by the end, it seemed like you just had the measure of everybody.
Yeah, in qualifying, I was trying to take it easy at the beginning, work up to it, get some good laps, but that first lap really seemed to be the best one, and really just by luck, I think it was the best out of all of them. And through the race, the first 10 minutes were a little bit of a struggle. We were a little sluggish, but once that we got past like 10 minutes, I was just in my zone.
Is that what you think caused the gap between yourself and Trepanier? Because we noticed him starting to fall off, and it seemed almost sudden, but we couldn't really ascribe it to any one thing.
Yeah, I finally had the confidence in the car and just started pushing and cranking out the consistent laps.
Well, you're a little bit far behind on the championship, sadly, but you continue to steal victories away from other drivers. How many more can you get before we wrap up this 10-race season?
I think there's about 2 more races, so that's the goal.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. Congratulations. Anybody you want to thank for today's victory?
Yeah, I can't thank Carl Modoff enough. This setup really was good. Tires were definitely a struggle and a focus, and we got it dialed in. I want to thank everyone at Delta Sport, Move Up, Race Factory, Freem USA, United for Kids, Get Stuck, Driven Texas, and Extreme Sim Racing.
That was Nathan Nicholson, our winner here in the PRL GT3 AM series at Suzuka. But looks like nobody else has joined him, which surprises us a little bit. Thought that we'd have at least a couple others wanting to come and chat after a pretty exciting race out there. But it allows us to close up and give some thank yous as well to our sponsors for this series, and that includes ASR. They design and build the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com. And RaceLab, it helps you to improve your driving skills. Start using it now for free at RaceLab.app. And ButtKicker, feel what you've been missing at thebuttkicker.com. As well as SimMSA. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SimMSA.net. And finally, NinjaTrader. Visit NinjaTrader.com and get started with a risk-free trading simulator to start tracking your performance. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out our Bandcamp for more great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Rob, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC, and there's a link in the description below if you just want to click that. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because in a week's time, we're off to Laguna Seca and Barcelona for each respective series here on Tuesday nights. That'll be November 16th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out. Mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.